Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to Drawing Expressions, live streaming on YouTube. I'm Parz. I am so happy that you're here today, whether you're part of the live or you're catching us on the replay. Super glad that you're here, that you're going to make this hour-ish part of your creative journey. I'm a creative writer, love creative writing. I have, and I just love to share that love with you and how I do stuff. And so I'm just glad that you're here. Okay, so let's just kind of dive right in. Actually, before we dive right in, quick note, as you can see in the chat, Alicia, my lovely lady love, is monitoring chat. Reach out, say hi, and show her some love. Let us know you're here. Love to see you. And if you come in on the replay, throw a chat in there because we do monitor the chat. Please. Okay. Let's move on to the things that I'd like you to know as we are getting into the class. The one thing that I love to mention every single time, and you're going to get bored hearing of it if you keep coming time after time after time, but it's so important. Guidelines. I am not a rules guy. Let's stick with the guidelines. The guidelines bend and rules break. And we don't like to break stuff. We just want it to bend to our will. So that's what we do. The structure, of course, is in two parts. We do planner section first to honor the planners, and then the pantser section second to honor the pantsers. So the planner section today is going to revolve around the prompt, which is pattern, and we will talk about the why and the how. And then in the pantser section, I think we're going to be talking about narrative nonfiction, and we'll see where we get with that. Anyways, one last thing before we move into doing some exercise and writing and such is Open Mic has now been rebranded to Free Expressions. Same great time, just a different name. Come on in, it's free. Our link to this event is in our Linktree, and I know that Alicia will be putting it up as well in the chat. So please, yeah, hang out. It's 90 minutes of art and creative writing, and make yourself an art date. We'd love to see you. Okay. With that, let us move into a little bit of breathing, a little bit of stretching, get us into our writing mindset. So for this, I like to square breathe. We're going to inhale for 5, hold for 5, exhale for 5, and hold for 5. I invite you to join me. Here we go. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, and inhale in, and move around a little bit, and exhale. Okay. I love this exercise because writing in its essence is listening to yourself, listening to story, and then putting it on paper. And I love that. Okay. So let us start by moving over here to the planning portion, the planner portion of the class. And before I do that, a little bit of iced coffee. Okay. So as I said, today's class is about where the prompt is a pattern. And the reason I would like to do pattern, in fact, I'm going to just bring up my screen. So I'm going to come over here to the let's begin and make sure that I've got the right thing that is up. There we go. Come on. Here we go. And okay. Planner. So yeah, so this is the prompt for the Moss Piglet magazine. It's their November issue. So if you'll recall, in a prior live stream, it's now titled Moby Dick, we did the October magazine, and Moby Dick was the prompt. And I really had a great time preparing some submissions and sharing some of my thoughts on how that worked, and just really the whole process. And I loved it so much that this is something that I have decided that I want to do monthly, because that is when Moss Piglet comes out. It's a monthly magazine. And so, yeah, so I did submit in for the Moby Dick, and one of the stories that I submitted was accepted. It was the one that I actually read on the last, or that live stream, the Moby Dick live stream. The right whale was the wrong whale. And so this one is going to be patterns. And so I've started preparing some stuff for this particular issue. And now I wanted to share some of those preparations, and to encourage you to join me as well in reaching out. Anyways, that's why we're doing this. So I'm going to scroll. So to begin with, let's just think about pattern or patterns. What does it mean to you? Now, patterns can be physical, right? Like fabric or wallpaper or whatever. Things that, your dishes. What patterns, right? They're in things. They do things, right? Yeah, my shirt is patterned. You have behavioral patterns, right? You have mathematical patterns, scientific patterns. You have patterns that are held closely and tight together. You have things that lack pattern. Whatever it is that comes to mind, that is what I would like you to put down in a list of ideas. And a short list is okay. Okay, we're asking you to kind of like on the fly come up with these ideas about patterns, and that is just fine and okay. So take a minute, write down an idea, 2, 3, how many ever, and we'll come back to that list. But sip another cup of coffee, and you go. Ice coffee on a cold, or on a warm day. It's a warm day. It's the cold coffee. Okay. All right. Now let's move on. And if you need more time, come back on the replay, pause, make your list, and we're going to scroll. Okay. Now, why are we doing this? Now, as I said before, because it's this Moss Piglet and the submission process, their submission deadlines for their monthly magazine, it's the first Wednesday of the month. So patterns, it's due the first Wednesday in October, and then it will come out in November. So that is your time frame. Another reason I'm doing this is because I like sharing what interests me and what has caught my attention, and this submission process definitely has. And lastly, I wanted to do patterns because patterns is really I found it very challenging to sort of wrap my head around and figure out what is it that I wanted to say about patterns, or using patterns as a prompt. How did I want to approach it? I am a very math and science guy. And so my head was going very into mathematical patterns and things like that. How do I approach that type of thing? And so I wanted to share part of that process as well. Okay, so let's slide on. So for this particular issue, it says I've already written a poem and a narrative nonfiction. Actually, it's 2 poems now. And the narrative nonfiction is the example I'll be sharing here in just Actually, I'm going to be sharing it right now because it says so. An example. So I am going to come over here to Let's Begin, and I can do my little magic-y thing. Wait for that to come up. Here we go. Okay. Okay. And this is titled In Search of an Einstein. Now, this is narrative nonfiction. This is true. Okay? So in the world of mathematics, there are a lot of unsolved questions. Most of them are quite complex to express, much less understand. For example, one of the most famous unsolved questions in mathematics, the Riemann hypothesis, runs like this. The Riemann zeta function has its zeros only at the negative even integers and complex numbers with real part 1/2, true or false. To a non-mathematician, it sounds like pure gibberish. And let's face it, maybe to a mathematician, it sounds like pure gibberish. I don't know. But there was one question that until November 2022 was unsolved, and it could be expressed like this. I want to tile my bathroom, but I think squares and rectangles and all that are boring because it's the same pattern over and over again. I want a single shape. It can rotate or whatever, but not overlap over the other tiles and not have gaps filled in with grout or other makeshift bits, because I don't want to have to buy multiple shapes and end up with leftovers. But I want that one shape to completely tile the wall no matter how big my wall is. Can I get something like that? So in mathematicians speak, you're looking for tiling that is aperiodic. That is, it creates a pattern that doesn't ever repeat. And while it was known that you could use two shapes to achieve the aperiodic look, and it was found in 1974 by physicist Roger Penrose, it was an unanswered question as to whether you could manage it with a single shape. It was so elusive, in fact, that it garnered its own name, the Einstein tile, Einstein not coming from the famous physicist, but instead from the German meaning one stone, and thought by many not to exist at all. But it's now known that the answer is yes, it does exist, meaning you can tile the bathroom wall the way you want. The first Einstein shape was discovered by David Smith, a retired printing technician and self-described shape hobbyist. After years of playing with shapes inside a piece of software, the Polyform Puzzle Solver, and then cutting shapes out of paper with promising candidates, he found one that looked likely. And despite what you might expect a shape like this to be, some sort of super fiddly, highly complicated, intricate shape requiring exacting manufacturing wizardry, it's a 13-sided shape composed of 8 kite shapes that come together, dubbed the hat because it resembles a top hat. Smith contacted computer scientist Craig Kaplan, who, along with software developer Joseph Samuel Myers and mathematician Chaim Goodman Strauss, and I hope I got those names pronounced right, began proving the hat was an Einstein. During that process, they discovered that they could change the lengths of the sides and still create a seamless, infinite, aperiodic tile. This meant that Smith had not found just a single Einstein shape, but an entire class of shapes. And within that class is an infinite number of individual Einstein shapes. What does all this mean? Aside from the possibilities within material science, engineering, and countless other fields, the most important thing, or at least as it relates to the original question, is this. You and your neighbor can have uniquely tiled aperiodic bathroom tiling using Einstein shapes, even if the store only sells one shape of tile. So that is the narrative nonfiction. What I wanted to do was to express a fact or a story within this discovery using storytelling techniques to try and make it entertaining, to try and keep you engaged, but also be educational. And just a quick look here is that I have references to the places that all of them, to all of the different places that I pulled information from in the development of this article. Okay, so this is my example. So now I'm going to come back to a face. Where did I go? There I go. Okay, now what I would like to do is to Ah, that's what I wanted to do. I want to come back to my share screen. Okay, we want to come back to your list of ideas on patterns. Pick an idea and pick an approach. I had this idea, mathematical. I had this approach, narrative nonfiction, but you can do whatever you'd like. Think about the starting point and then just start writing, and whatever it becomes, it becomes. I'm going to evoke real quick that essay that I've started to refer to. It was by Neil Gaiman. Excuse me. And in his essay, and I really believe this to be true, you grab your idea. I say, think about it real quick, or think about it, not even real quick. Think about it. Where do you want to start? And just start to write and let it become what it becomes. Okay, so let's all do that together. Now, this is the part where I start to think out loud, and I'm going to be typing onto my page. So if you don't want to listen to me blabber about all that kind of stuff, you go ahead and mute, and we'll come back to the stretch and breathe screen at the end of this section. Okay, so I'm going to come over to my working page. And there we go. There's my working page, and I'm going to bring my tablet over. Perfect. And let's see now here. So just as a note, I'm working on pattern, and I just stick it up top. Okay. So as I said before, I am very interested in math and science. And when I think pattern, that's where my head naturally wants to go. And it's very hard to make math and science interesting. I really hoped that I achieved it with that narrative nonfiction, In Search of an Einstein. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. It's all going to depend on who the reader is. But for me, it worked. But what I want to do this go round is to reference science, math and science, but to do so in a fiction format. I just want to make something up in kind of, have that kind of skew. And so where my mind goes to, there was actually an article that I read last night, and it's coming to the fore. It has been coming to the fore as an idea. And basically what it said is that there was a new class of shapes that were found in nature. So it says, just like the bathroom tile, where you've got the squares, right? Very, long lines, sharp corners. Nature doesn't work like that. Nature is much more rounded, much more curved. It's just nature abhors a straight line. Nature does not like corners. There are counterexamples out in nature, like the beehives with the the hexagonal shapes. But for the most part, you're not going to find things that are nice and regular and tidy. It operates very rounded and curved. It's people who have the, when we build stuff, everything's flush with the long lines and the corners. So what can we do with that? What can we do with that? So I want to start with, in the natural world, building design is all about curves, curves and rounded edges. Yeah. Not right angles, right? Those 90-degree angles, right angles. Not right angles and put in an extra space. And not right angles and not long pieces of straight. Okay, so in the natural world, building design is all about curves and rounded edges, not right angles and long pieces of straight. But in the human world, building design is all about. I'm going to end up repeating myself, but I think that's going to be okay. We're splashing the idea down on edit. We might go through and clean this up. Building design is all about. Actually, I'm going to italicize the is because that just sort of right there is all about straight and hard corners. What does this tell us? Oops. What does this tell us? I think it tells us that the human world is not part of the natural world. And where does the human building design come from? Well, it comes from our brains. It comes from our ideas. It comes from these things. So what if we sort of say human intellect is not natural? Our bodies are natural. There's not a lot of edges. There's a lot of curves and and rounded edges, not a lot of long pieces of straight, no right angles, and yes, I mean, we can bend joints and things into right angles, but for the most part, there's no right angles, and there's not a lot of long. Even things like bones, they're irregular, they're pitted, they're not nice and straight. And apparently I needed coffee more than I needed to finish that thought. But anyways, so I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with that that avenue, that approach. It says that human intellect from which arises, not raised, arises. Sometimes spell check, you're just so wrong. From which arises human building design. Give myself some space. Is not design. No, not design. Design is not of the natural world. It is, in fact, not natural at all. Okay, it is, in fact, not natural at all. Where then does human intellect come from? Now I'm inserting myself in, now not as me, the writer. I am inserting myself in as the narrator of this piece, right? Because I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of do this little bit of like really weird logic and then sign off as like a person who has this crazy theory. Kind of fun. I like that. So where then does human intellect come from? I believe it emerged as a result of contact with extraterrestrial beings during the construction of the pyramids of Egypt. Let's see now here. Yeah, where then does human intellect come from? I believe it emerged as a result of contact with extraterrestrial beings during the construction of the pyramids of Egypt. This dovetails nicely with my existing theories, IES, concerning prehistorical concerning prehistorical contact with beings from perhaps not of this solar system. Is this making sense? This dovetails nicely with my existing theories concerning prehistorical contact with beings from perhaps not this star system. Let's take the of out of there. Just a quick edit just to get that done. Or perhaps not this solar system. And indeed, perhaps not even this dimension. For more information, concerning my ideas, visit my Patreon page, where for a donation you can read my full thesis. And now let's just have a sign off. I love the little tilde that just says, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna close this up." This is going. Let's have like a ridiculous name. Vince Quinsant. I'm going to put a name in here that no one, I believe, on the planet is going to have, just so we don't insult anybody. Vince Quinsant Raphael Double-de-doo the third Esquire. Okay. So now we've got this idea down. So I'm just going to scroll back up to the top, kind of read it over. In the natural world, building design is all about curves and rounded edges, not right angles and not long pieces of straight. I'm going to actually, we can pull that second not out. It's repetitive. Not right angles and long pieces of straight. But in the human world, building design is all about straight and hard corners. What does this tell us? It says that human intellect from which arises human building design is not of the natural world. It is, in fact, not natural at all. Where, then, does human intellect come from? I believe it emerged as a result of contact with extraterrestrial beings during the construction of the pyramids of Egypt. This dovetails nicely with my existing theories concerning prehistorical contact with beings from perhaps not this solar system, and indeed perhaps not even this dimension. For more information concerning my ideas, visit my Patreon page, where for a donation, let's put the comma in, for a donation, you can read my full thesis. Vince Quinsant Raphael Double-de-doo the third Esquire. And there we go. That's just sort of, it's get the idea out there and get to start to work with this. And so that is an idea that I've worked just right now. I'd love to read your ideas if you want to pop them into chat. And I see that Alicia has shared hers, and so I'm going to just read it right now. And this appears to be a poem. So here we go. So bending deep and low, reaching as balance shifts, dripping pigment, splatters falling, random blotches, meditatively creating, patterns emerge within my hand painted floor. Within my hand painted floor. Note to our landlord, this is not real. This is fiction. Fiction. Don't hold our deposit, please. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing. That was lovely. I love it. And it's another way to express pattern, right? This is through poem. So. Anyway, I'm going to move my table out of the way, move around. I'm going to bring us over to the breathe and stretch. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to take a moment here to breathe in. I'm going to invite you to join me. So here we go. Breathing in. And stretch. Yeah. That always feels good. Get a little bit of stretch on the back. Cross. One side to the other side. Don't do as I did the other day and overstretch your back and then feel it for a week and a half. Adventures in aging, overstretching. There we go. All right. Good. That feels good. Okay. Let us, oops, I'm going to change my page over. So just real quick. And here we go. So we're moving into pantser time. So I'm going to, here we go. Narrative nonfiction. So what I want to do is to spend a little bit more time talking about how I got to In Search of an Einstein, and to talk about ways that you can incorporate nonfiction into your work. So backing up just a little bit, when I first started thinking about the prompt of pattern, and again, math and science guy, that's where my head tracks, into math and science. And I knew that there were different avenues within math and science that I could go. Could I use pattern as a fictional piece? Absolutely, I could. And in fact, I found myself doing that, preparing up the two poems that I have prepared and will be submitting in. But it took a little bit of effort, a bit of a struggle to get the to get pattern in my head to go to fiction. It really wanted to stay with nonfiction. So okay, allow that to be. And so where do we go with the nonfiction? So with nonfiction, so nonfiction means, you know, it's fact, it's not false. How do we handle that? How do we deal with it? So keeping in mind, and I'm just going to scroll here to get into the explanation. There are many different types of creative writing. And my classes and live streams have looked at fiction, but we can creatively write about a factual or / real situation. And the key to do it, and that's what I'm trying to get to here, is that we do so creatively, that we have an eye towards educating, right? So we're employing the facts that we know, but it's also entertaining. We want to keep people engaged. We don't want to approach things like a textbook or like a journalist would, where we're covering the who, the what, the where, the why, and the when. We want to have more than that. We want to have the story. And in fact, again, stepping back from this just real quick, Within that realm of narrative nonfiction, you have things like biography and autobiography. So writing about another person or yourself. We have memoir, so it's like your recollections. We have historical fiction, historical fiction, where you take a time period or something that happened and you're writing based on it. War and Peace, that super thick tome by Tolstoy, that is historical fiction, as is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. That's about the French Revolution and the happenings of the characters within that time frame. In here, I was trying to do something that would show the discovery of this patterning that I knew about, and do it in a fun and educational way. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to scroll, and we're going to choose something factual, something you know, something you've experienced, something you remember, something that is fact, something that happened, or something, right? If you are doing this especially if you're doing this on the replay, make sure to use references and to cite sources, because you want to give credit where credit is due. Also, it helps to give more credence to your work. I could easily have said, in search of an Einstein, and just made it all up out of whole cloth. That maybe in reality they hadn't found it, and I said they did. And that would be, I would present it as being fiction. But in terms of when someone goes to read it, in order to sort of enhance the non-fiction experience, I also put in the references. It gives more concreteness to the writing. Okay, so what we want to do is to take that experience, take that memory, take that fact, and express it in your own way, whether it is I don't want to go into fiction, because this is specifically about narrative nonfiction. So do try and tell a story, but make it factual. So for instance, one place that my mind absolutely really, really, really wants to go to is into the Fibonacci series of numbers, which is, it goes 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. It's the one that you take the two prior numbers, you add them together, that's your next number, and so on and so on and so on. But I don't know the story behind how that system came about. I don't know how it is that it was discovered. So I would have to go and look it up in order to complete this exercise. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of these ideas, I think. So something, if you haven't come up with anything yet, and maybe my jabbering has kept you distracted, maybe look at this, a trick you use to make a job easier, and express that. Or an event you attended where something notable happened that you want to share, almost like you're telling a story to a friend or family. Or a piece of trivia and how you came to know it, like this interesting little tidbit. Like, how did I find out about the Einstein? Well, I read it online. Okay, maybe not quite so interesting, but maybe there are things that you know that you found out in an interesting way, and you can share it that way. So let's just sort of work with that. Okay, so I'm going to scroll again. I'm going to just come down here. Actually, no, I'm going to come over to my working page. And I'm going to bring my table up and give myself some space. Actually, let's get to the next page, because there we go. Scroll. Okay. So I'm just going to put this up top just to keep myself focused on narrative nonfiction. something that I know and how I discovered it. Now, clearly, I've given this a lot of thought because I get quiet all of a sudden, just like, well, what is it that I know and how is it that I did this? So I am going to write about how I started to write. So, and why. I think that's maybe even better. Why I started to write, because that, I think, that to me is interesting, and I hope you'll find it interesting too. Okay. So, I don't remember what the exact year was, but it was definitely pre-COVID. And, you know, here we are in this day and age where we can date things post and prior COVID. It was definitely pre-COVID. I had been a part of a group of people who would, it was called Socratic, and it actually, if you look it up now, Socratic is so you take a picture of a question using your phone, and then it pops up with the answer and how it's worked it out, and particularly in math, but I believe they've tried to design it for all subjects. And it turns out that I think, although the top of the company insisted they weren't, I think they were using the answers that we were generating as training material for their algorithm. But that's okay. So I had been part of a group of people who would answer questions. Typically high school math questions, but they, okay, let's put the comma in there, typically math questions, but they ran the gamut. There's one spell gamut, oh, that way, but they ran the gamut of math, science, social studies, and humanities. And I really enjoyed being a part of that team. Okay, so now we've set it up. What was I doing before I was writing? When the team was closed down, number one, I was devastated. Actually, let's go ahead and put that in. I was devastated. I was devastated. After a period of grieving, I found myself wondering, I found myself wanting, that's where we were to first, wanting to be creative, but not sure how to be creative. And from there, and one day, I woke up thinking about the exercise elementary school exercise. Of writing 100-word stories. Now, I'd done this also with a writing group on a monthly basis, and remembered enjoying myself making up stories. So I decided write one. And the next day, I'm gonna put that into another paragraph. And the next day, come on, capitalize please. And the next day, I wrote another. And the next day, again, did the same. It became a daily writing habit that I kept up for years, until COVID and life got in the way, which is when I took a break. And that break ended when I joined drawingXpressions. And now I can't stop writing. I love it so much. There. And that, my friends, followers, watchers, absolute strangers, is how I started to write, because I just started to write. So let's just sort of recap. I don't know, I don't know the exact what the exact year was, but it was definitely pre-COVID. And in part of a group of people who would answer questions, typically high school math questions, but they ran the gamut: math, science, social studies, and humanities. And I really enjoyed being a part of that team. When the team was closed down, I was devastated. After a period of grieving, I found myself wanting to be creative, but not sure how to be creative. One day, I woke up thinking about the elementary school exercise of writing 100-word stories. Now, I'd done this also with a writing group on a monthly basis years before, and remembered enjoying myself making up stories. So I decided to write one. And the next day I wrote another, and the next day again I did the same. It became a daily writing habit that I kept up for years, until COVID and life got in the way, which is when I took a break. And that break ended when I joined drawingXpressions earlier this year. Oops. Earlier this year. And now I can't stop writing. I love it so much. So this is just a rough idea. Definitely could use some editing if I was going to publish it or use it more than just sort of throwing an idea down. But really, I wanted just to give an idea as to how you can approach writing a memory or an experience, or how you started to do something, or how you learned something. This type of thing. Anyway, I think what I'd like to do is bring us back to breathing and stretching, and sort of do a nice closing breath and stretch. So inviting you to join me with a nice breath in and stretch, and exhale. And remember, in all of these breathing exercises, if I inhale and you're not ready yet, just catch up when you're ready. And if I exhale sooner than you're ready or beyond when you're ready, just exhale. Breath should never be stressful. Follow your breath. Okay. But I do want to do a little bit more of a stretching type of thing. Spend a little bit more time stretching. We've spent a little less time than normal doing our writing, which means we can be a little bit more limber. Give our hands, which have been working so hard, a bit of a break. There we go. So yeah, we're about 50 minutes in. And I'm just going to come over here to a few closing things. Number one is drawingXpressions haiku, a creative space, holistically supportive. Please like, share, subscribe. And join us weekly, both here on the live stream and on our free expressions, which again, I'm just going to remind you, free expressions, which is over here on that side, where you get to create together. We get to hang out. We get to do stuff. Okay. So if you are of a mind to share your stuff on social media, there's the hashtag DXLiveWithParz. If you want to get a hold of us in any sort of way, there's the email. Follow the Linktree. There's all the different ways that you can get a hold of us and participate in what it is that we do. And as always, I really enjoy listening to what you have produced or reading it. You're not here. I can't hear you, but I can read it. Yeah, I just love, as people go through their creative process, just as I'm sharing mine with you, I hope you share yours with me. Anyways, with that, I'm going to close this down. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I hope to see you next week. I hope to see you at Free Expressions. And until next time, take care.